What if this whole modern search for a meaningful life, this constant push to look inside yourself, is actually pointing us in completely the wrong direction? Today, we're going to dive into this really powerful paradox, the idea that true meaning isn't something you find, it's something you give away.
I mean, it's one of the biggest questions we can ask ourselves, right? Where does true meaning really come from? And for decades, our culture has been giving us one very specific answer.
Oh, you've heard it everywhere. Find your passion, express your authentic self, optimize your life. The message is crystal clear. The treasure map to a meaningful life is buried somewhere deep inside of you.
So yeah, there's this constant drumbeat of self-this, self-that, self-expression, self-satisfaction, self-optimization. But what if there's this other idea, a much older, more timeless truth? One that says real significance has nothing to do with the self and everything to do with looking outward.
This is the core idea we're going to unpack. What if that constant inward gaze is actually stopping us from finding the very thing we're so desperately looking for?
All right, so let's start by looking at the limits of a purely self-focused life. Why is just looking inward, well, why isn't it enough?
See, the problem is really one of scale. Think about it. Meaning is this huge, expansive thing. It's like an ocean. And trying to pour all of that into the tiny container of our own personal wants and feelings, well, it's like trying to hold the entire ocean in a teacup. It just doesn't work. It's bound to overflow and ironically leave us feeling even more empty.
The psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl, he understood this on a profound level. He argued that our very nature as human beings is to be oriented outward, towards a cause we can serve or a person we can love. Our humanity isn't really found in isolation, but in connection.
It's kind of like this. When our world revolves only around ourselves, that world starts to shrink. Our worries, our anxieties, they can get magnified. But when we direct that same energy outward, towards other people or a bigger purpose, something amazing happens. Our whole sense of meaning just expands.
Okay, so if looking inward is the problem, what's the solution? Let's talk about what this outward flow of meaning actually looks and feels like in real life.
Seriously, just take a second and think about it. When did you feel like your life truly, deeply mattered? I'm willing to bet the memories that pop into your head weren't moments of pure self-satisfaction.
Yeah, they were probably moments of what you could call self-transcendence. Holding a child, creating something beautiful, standing by a friend when they're grieving. These are the times when all our own little worries just fade away. They fade into the background because we're completely wrapped up in a person or a project that's bigger than us. Those are the moments that really, truly define a life.
This brings us to a big idea, service. And look, it's so important to get this right. We're not just talking about volunteering on a Saturday or donating some money. It's a fundamental shift in how you see everything. It's about seeing your life not as something you own and hoard for yourself, but as a gift to be shared with the world.
And the difference in perspective here is just stark. A life that's all about me becomes a closed loop, just feeding on itself. But a life of service, that creates a widening circle, a ripple effect of meaning that extends way beyond our own little existence.
And now we get to the very heart of this whole thing. This beautiful paradox that at first seems to make absolutely no sense.
And that's a totally fair question, right? I mean, it feels like if we pour all of our time and our energy and our love into other people, we're just going to be left totally drained, empty. But the wild thing is, the truth is the exact opposite.
And this is the secret. In the very act of giving yourself away, you don't lose yourself, you find yourself. You don't become less, you discover your deepest purpose, your greatest strength. It turns out true self-discovery doesn't happen when you're staring in the mirror. It happens when you're looking out at the needs of the world. So how in the world does this work? Well, a life that's only lived for personal gain can feel pretty shallow, pretty fragile. But a life that's poured into others, into family, community, a cause you believe in, that kind of life grows deep roots. Tying ourselves to responsibility and to love, it gives our own identity a weight and a substance it could never, ever have on its own.
But what's the real ultimate payoff of this outward focus? It's not just about feeling good. It's about what holds us steady, what anchors us when the storms of life inevitably hit.
Now let's be super clear here. This is not some magic trick to avoid pain. Life will always have its struggles. But having a purpose that's bigger than your own happiness gives that suffering a context. It transforms random, meaningless pain into a meaningful sacrifice.
Just look at these examples, right? A parent puts up with sleepless nights, not for themselves, but for their child. An artist struggles through creative blocks, not for their own comfort, but for the vision they're trying to bring to life. In every single case, the hardship is worth it because the why, the reason for the struggle, is so much bigger than the self. And that is what turns suffering into sacrifice.
So here's the crucial takeaway. Knowing yourself, being self-aware, that's important. Of course it is. It's where the journey has to begin. But it is not the final destination. True, lasting meaning is found when we take that self-awareness and we dedicate it to something or someone beyond ourselves.
And so that leaves us with this one final, really powerful question. It's not about what you can get from your life. It's about what you're willing to give to it. Because when you answer that, that's when meaning isn't just found, it's created.